Yes, ma'am. We've had tornadoes touch down in the area. We don't have any information. It's all coming in right now. The house is blown away.
I'm Billy Walker. The events that took place in Clarksville, Tennessee, the morning of Friday, January 22nd, are still nearly impossible to believe.
And I'm Cindy Chambers. For the next 60 minutes, we'd like to show you what our city and its citizens experienced on a day that no one will ever forget. It started with a storm.
In SkyTracker 5 data at 3 o'clock this morning, this is Nashville down here, and here you see Paris and the counties right along the river. Clarksville, of course, is here, and the storm started moving in on Big Sandy, where there was one fatality.
We tried to get what's called a footprint on how the storm actually transversed across the city of Clarksville. And we picked up some early residual damage around the Fairgrounds Park, Riverside Drive. As it, right there's probably around 410, 411, somewhere around there where this part of the storm was actually here. As it progressed then, minute by minute, it was increasing in size. You can see how the debris fields actually start spreading out. Of course, we get up to the cigar factory around High Street Antiques. You've seen a lot of damage. Valley Brook Park, a lot of those trees was airborne. We had a very large debris field at this time. Of course, going into downtown Clarksville, striking the CJC, coming through the Dog Hill area. Hitting the courthouse, taking out the Leaf Chronicle.
I decided to come back downtown to the Public Square office, beside the mayor's office, and try to shoot some lightning pictures of the storm moving in, because to have a storm like that in January is pretty unusual. The wind started picking up, and listening to the dispatchers on the radio, they were talking about it's more severe storm moving in, so by the time I had time to pick up.
4 years as police officers, it was a nightmare. But the thing I remember the most is when I got to Franklin Street and I tried to turn into the driveway at the PD, my light shined up and I caught the corner of the building and I noticed it was gone, and that really told me that we were in serious trouble.
I deliver papers for the Leaf Chronicle, so it was about 5 minutes to 4 when I arrived home. The storm was coming at that point. It was getting loud. Then the electricity went off, and then the air was different, kind of void of feeling. Kind of like you're in an airplane, like a pressure chamber type thing, and then we opened the back door and there was a fire, and so we called 911, and the lady at 911 said,
911. Okay, there's nothing we can do right now. If they're not injured, you're going to have to just call your insurance company.
And we just thought 911 lady was just having an ordeal because everybody was calling her. Little did we know that their building had been kind of like blown apart.
My immediate reaction was to go to the police department, which I did. I headed that way. It was pitch black, pelting rain. And the first thing I saw was one of my lieutenants walking down the middle of the street in front of the department, very dazed, and he had missed losing his life by about 15 or 20 seconds. As he was about to get in a police car, a tree fell on that car and crushed the car. So, I got him in the car. I said, we've got to get up to headquarters to set up a command post, and he said, their headquarters isn't there, it's gone.
And as we progressed on through Austin P, University, heading across Craft Street, crossing the Red River, Appleton's Harley shop there.
We were watching the radar, and about 4:10 we walked outside this door right here, and we couldn't see it, but we could hear it. And me and another employee got in my truck and went up 10th and then 9th and turned right on College, went on out 79. About right there at Saturn, it actually sucked our vehicle across about 2 lanes of traffic, and I thought we were gone then.
It was around 4:15 that morning, and it was like a summer breeze that morning. It was real nice, and then all of a sudden, lights started flickering, the air units started jumping back and forth, everything was out. The walls on the outside started like breathing in and out, and then the ceiling just caved in, walls falling in. It didn't take but just maybe a minute. It was short.
Going up through St. Bethlehem, got out into the Cedar Brook, Clarksville Business Park. Again, still progressing, still doing the same damage. A lot of buildings out into the Clarksville Business Park, which was prefab metal buildings. Some of those was totally destroyed and just thrown into the sinkholes. Going into the Meadow Lane subdivision, we had TVA tower down, lots of damage to houses, major damage to houses there. Transversed on out, just still moving through St. Bethlehem, crossing the 101st, took off the greenhouse there at Lowe's, a few shingles into the Forest Hill subdivision, which one of those houses happened to be mine. Moving on towards the train industry, took out some commercial businesses that are on the left.
When I was looking down Wilma Rudolph, just before I left that station, it crossed from the auto lube on one side of Wilma Rudolph to over to train, and it was kind of like a huge dark curtain going across, like a closing of a curtain on a stage. You didn't see anything through the curtain. There was everything beyond the curtain. There was lights and service stations down the street, but you couldn't see those lights. It was just dark things flying around in that dark curtain area, and that was what the tornado looked like going across the street. That dark thing happened to be the roof of the auto lube place.
Probably about 4:10 in a few seconds, to 4:15, and then by the time it was gone, you're probably looking at a total maximum time of no more than 4.5 minutes.
Packing winds of nearly 250 miles per hour, the tornado relentlessly destroyed everything in its path. Miraculously, no one in Clarksville was killed, yet residents who slept through the onslaught awoke to find a city forever changed.
You know, the images, I was not able to get downtown until a little later on in the day because of the chaos that we were having trying to coordinate everything. But I just never forget the sight when I rounded the corner and saw the devastation and the damage. It's indescribable. You know, I've only been here 8.5 months, but this is my town. And to see all this damage, I'll never be able to say how I felt.
You are being asked, anyone in the area, not to come down here. It is probably not safe at this point, even though gas and electricity has been cut off. But most importantly, you want to stay out of the way of the people who are working here. There is a curfew from 6 p.m. until 6 in the morning.
Well, there certainly were at least 3 tornadoes from that cell early this morning, and probably more.
It damaged or destroyed the Petrie cigar factory, which housed an antique shop. And I'm afraid it's beyond repair. At least that's what I hear. I've not heard a structural engineer, but it looks devastated. It was, as I said, the Petrie cigar factory at one time. I understand it was said to have been a Confederate hospital during the Civil War, used briefly as a hospital. They hand-rolled cigars there for many, many years. And up until '75, they stored dark-fired tobacco there for their parent company.
I heard that it had been hit. A friend of mine, Jimmy Henry, called me on the phone, and I came over, and as my headlights hit over on Charlotte Street, my dogs were there waiting for me. I put them in the car and then drove up to the building. But we still didn't get to the building because the roof on the building next to us, you'll see it as we go back downstairs, the roof was off, and this lady's car was parked there, and everybody was concerned about the lady. We went inside, and there were bricks on top of the bed. We pulled the bricks. We couldn't find her. She left. Then I came and inspected the building. But it was still dark, and we couldn't, we couldn't come in or anything like that, so we just threw our hands up and said, we're out of business. Total damage. The buildings cannot be rebuilt. It is just amazing that no one got killed.
And then, of course, we come to Dog Hill. The Dog Hill district is on the National Register as an entire district. There were just about every home there sustained damage.
It was lightning and hailing outside, and I had got up, was looking out the door, and my neighbors was across the street on their porch, and then it just got deathly still. And then all of a sudden, it sounded like a freight train coming through the living room. But here I stood there, it lifted the porch up across the street, turned it over, and landed on the people across the street. But it happened so quick. By the time, you know, it all happened, I had run to the closet. By the time I got to the closet, it was over. All my neighbors had lost everything.
Then we have the Lurton house across the street from her that was a law office. It was the home of our Supreme Court Justice, United States Supreme Court Justice. It was built by him. The museum didn't sustain as much damage as the other buildings. However, it's going to be many months before they reopen. Then the courthouse, of course, took a vast lick, you might say. Of course, the Leaf Chronicle, don't let me leave them out. Their buildings sustained much damage.
It was about 3:30 when my little boy woke me up and told me it was a real bad wind, and he was frightened. And the wind was blowing really hard, and so we put them in the basement. And the wind passed, and about 5 minutes after the wind passed, I got a call from my production manager, and he told me that the paper had been hit by a tornado, and it was badly damaged. And I said, well, get some tarps, and we'll put the roof back on it and get the newspaper out. And he said, you don't understand, Gene, said it's beyond repair. We had people's paper on their doorstep at their normal time that morning. I guess one of the most exciting moments was about 3:30 or 2:30 in the morning when the trucks came in from Hopkinsville, and I was out at Kmart with our carriers, and we were all high-fiving and just excited as the devil. And then I went home to wait and get my paper when my carrier brought it. I just wanted to be there when my carrier brought it. And she put it in my paper box, and I went out, and big tears came in my eyes. I was so proud. Our staff just did one great job, and then this community put its arms around us and helped us through the next couple of weeks. And it's just been a really rewarding experience if we hadn't had so much tragedy like this. You know, that was my office right there.
Of course, 3rd Street was devastated, the lower part, South 3rd, I guess you'd call it, which a lot of those buildings did not have, it was not in the National Architectural District, National Register, but they did lend character to the area. But many of them were not historically significant. Although we're finding that many of them are maybe older than we thought, because the deli, front page deli that was on the corner, we found the tin ceiling very similar to what we found in the courthouse. Of course, the Madison Street Methodist Church, the pictures speak for themselves.
It was a part of my spiritual life and part of the community's spiritual life. Has been here since 1882. You know, all the historical facts that I think everybody's heard anyhow. The beauty of the sanctuary on Christmas Eve was the last time I was in a really impressive service. We were in, of course, on Sunday morning services, but that was a night service, and we had a candlelight service. We lit the candles from the altar, and the church was completely dark, and the light just comes back and engulfs you, and that's what I think of the warmth of the church and the people. But we have pictures, and we have memories, and it's what's up here and in here, you know.
Then you have the Episcopal Church. They are planning on rebuilding. They already have an construction company, I understand. Behind the deli was Sam Collins' music store. It was devastated.
The next thing I knew, I was awakened with a loud sound, a loud roaring sound, and then it sucked my front window out, big heavy plate glass windows. It just pulled them out first. Thank God it didn't blow in on me at that moment, because it took the glass outward. I did have some flying slate from our museum and maybe the courthouse that was taken out in little round particles and was sailing through the air.
The Eli feed store, which had been there for many, many years, it was really demolished. It was just down. Then we have South 2nd Street, the law offices along there, behind what I call the old Northern Bank, but Debbie Evans' building today. It received much damage. Franklin Street received some damage on the lower end toward the public square. All of those buildings received damage. Then we come to Howell School, which, although not that old, 1921, it has many fond memories. When this hit, nationwide. They didn't say Clarksville had been hit by a tornado. They said historic Clarksville had been hit. I think we'll be better than ever.
Austin Peay State University, normally bustling with thousands of students on a Friday morning, was eerily quiet as residents tried hard to cope with the destruction.
It's really been a shame. We lost about 186 trees. I know a lot of the students who were in their dorms at the time were just terrified, and the building was just coming in around them. But it's really remarkable.
We were all scared and nervous. You could hear kind of like train noises. So we knew that it was a tornado, and I thank God that I made it through the storm.
Mayor Johnny Piper, in office just 22 days, had to move quickly from learning the ropes to leading a city in shambles.
Well, I was in the office for 3 weeks, and seemed like 3 months now. Sometimes seemed like 3 years. But, you know, construction was my background, and it's a challenge that I accept, and we're going to put it back. This community is going to be very proud when we're complete.
Less than 48 hours after the tornado hit, with damaged buildings only temporarily secured, Piper gave downtown business owners 1 hour to go into stores and offices to gather their belongings.
It's old, isn't it? Antique.
Everything in this office is. I was relieved to see that my office was not completely destroyed by fire. What was not destroyed by fire was heavily damaged by water. But I was blessed in that I was not in the fire or the tornado when it hit. It didn't strike my home. I saved all of my current files. I only lost my old and archived files. Obviously, all of my furniture was damaged or destroyed. I am so blessed in that I saved enough that I can continue to serve my clients without interruption. There's so many good people, and they're just waiting to do good for others. Oh, it's made me feel magnificent about my hometown.
The hour's up. Let's go, let's go. Okay, the hour's up.
Can you speak a little bit about the folks under you, the emergency management team, the police department, the utility companies? How have they done?
You can't say enough for what they've done. They have been tremendous on their support, being there 24 hours a day, never complained. I never heard one complaint of one employee, of one volunteer at all. What a tremendous community.
Much of the cleanup would be done by thousands of volunteers who showed up to help in the days that followed. Among those willing to lend a helping hand were members of the Tennessee Titans.
Obviously, there's still a lot of work to be done, so this is a chance for us to come back and support the cities that supports us year-round.
Anytime there's been a situation, whether it happened in Nashville, now up here in Clarksville, there's been other relief programs in Nashville with the homeless, etc. Jeff really keeps a pulse on the community, and he expects all of us and the players to give back, because our profession's based on community relations and how they perceive us and what kind of product we put on the field for them. And Jeff really does expect us to give back to the community.
Basically, we was just lifting logs and things of that nature, just trying to help the community out. The destruction is just bad around this area, and the more we can do to help these people out, the better it makes us feel, it makes the community feel as we come out here and just help out.
Trying to save every piece of glass we can. Some of this is Tiffany glass. It's really hard to find, and it's like the folds in the garments of the angels and stuff. We have a lot of volunteers through the church that are coming to help us whatever the way they can, by riding, by lifting, by moving things to storage until we're able to use it again. Anything we can do to help the process along, and the debris cleanup, these guys have been just awesome, and it's, by the third day, it was 90% better outside the debris cleanup, and inside the church, they've just done amazing things that have let our parishioners come in safety and see the church and be able to deal with their grief and their mourning of the loss, and then get on with the restoration. So it's a long process. It's going to be a long process, but we're going to be back.
Well, this is absolutely devastating in terms of the physical
buildings, and to historic buildings, to buildings of worship, schools, homes. Fortunately, I keep saying to myself, it was a blessing from God. There was no loss of life. And it's incredible the way the community is pulling together and talking about rebuilding. But obviously this was a very serious tornado that did extremely destructive damage to a large part of Clarksville.
As damage estimates climb past the $72 million mark, Tipper Gore, wife of Vice President Al Gore, came to view the destruction firsthand. She took a special interest in the hard-hit Red River District. Later, during a downtown press conference, she applauded citizens for pulling together during some of Clarksville's darkest hours.
I know that your immediate focus is on cleanup effort, and I understand a lot of citizens spent last Saturday pitching in, just helping clean up, and even driving in. I saw people pulling things out of their houses, making piles on the side of the road. And I think I would like to say, please continue that. This is something that is not going to be done overnight, but there is an end in sight. You've got a lot of good leadership. You've got the help that you need from the federal level. FEMA is an absolutely fantastic agency. You have the help of the historic trust preservation and those that understand the history in some of the buildings, and they're going to help to restore that. And you've got each other to work together to make sure that everything comes back so that the next generation of children can be as proud of Clarksville as we have always been throughout its history.
Our community has truly pulled together with help from service agencies, businesses, and ordinary citizens. We have shown humility and even humor as we begin to rebuild our lives and our community.
But we have to list everything. So I guess that's a good way to do housekeeping, although this wasn't a way we had certainly planned to do it.
The way he put me in the bathroom under different circumstances could have been called spouse abuse, but, but he got me there. It was a devastating thing to happen. It happened in 1878 when it destroyed all the town. The town was 15 acres, and it destroyed all of it. The Great Fire, we call, of 1878. They rebuilt after that. I think we're moving along.
We talk a lot about how bad things are in this country today, and we've got some bad things, no doubt, but everybody always comes together in something like this. It's the human spirit, and it's amazing.
And so in the wreckage of a city, there is hope, as neighbors help neighbors rebuild this historic community on the Cumberland.
Clarksville will rise again, because through all of this we've learned a tornado may change the look of a town, but it can never change its spirit.
I've not been in a war, and I've not seen bombs go off, but it couldn't be any worse than this.
Oh man, it sounds like a bomb on another war or something coming through. Start whispering going on, and all at once starts the hailing, and we were sitting right now. And then it starts raining down through this lower side here, and we got out of there as fast as we could.
total devastation. It was just something that was unbelievable to the eyes.
You almost couldn't even catch your breath. It was like all the air was gone. I mean, it was so weird. Gave me chill bumps. It does it to me again just thinking about it.
Never been as glad to see a flashlight in my life.
But last night when that tornado passed through, I was absolutely terrified. I really got sick with fear. I think it's finally become real. I hope I don't ever see another one.
But Clarksville's going to recover. We're going to be back up. Like I said, we got knocked down, but we didn't get knocked out.